For episode 20, I want to do something special. And the timing works out in an interesting way. During normal times in the American political system... Wait, don't turn off the podcast. I promise there's nothing political coming. Honest, just stay with me for just a minute. Okay, for those of you outside the United States, normally around this time of year, the president, whoever it is, gives an annual speech to the nation called the State of the Union, in which they report to the legislature and the citizens on what shape the country is in. Invariably, they say that the country has never been better or stronger, no matter what might currently be happening, before proceeding to lay out all of their plans, highlighting only the problems that they feel pretty sure they can fix. In short, it is an annual opportunity to take stock of how it's all going. Okay, I promise that is the end of the political talk. My idea is to have a similar update on the World of Warcraft. What is the state of the game at this moment in time? Bigger picture. Obviously, unlike a president of a nation, I am but a participant and observer in the World of Warcraft, not a developer or a high-level exec with a need to brag or with skin in the game. Setting aside the imminent launch of 11.1 in just a few days, I wanted to talk about what is good in Azeroth and what I'm looking forward to. Mostly positive, but with a few places where I'm looking for improvements. But I did not want to do that alone. Who better to talk with than the very first guest I had on this show 1 whole year ago this month. This is not an interview, more of a wide-ranging conversation on a whole number of topics. So strap in for the first, hopefully annual, State of World of Warcraft conversation with my friend from the Thrall's Balls podcast, Gershom. You have entered the Solo Queue, a monthly podcast about adventuring alone in the World of Warcraft. Thanks for joining me. My name is Dave Gagne. Welcome to episode 20 of Solo Queue. That is 1 score if you are Abe Lincoln, and 2 X's if you happen to be an ancient Roman. But otherwise, 20 episodes, here we are, and we have kind of a different interview. I'm not thinking of it as an interview episode. I'm thinking of it as a conversation, and I think it should be a yearly conversation where we gather and talk about the state of World of Warcraft, and I plan on doing that every February with my friend Gershom. Gershom, welcome back. How are you today?
Dr. Gagne, sir. Hi. Hi. Thank you for having me back.
Absolutely.
Although I thought it was funny how you dropped it in the episode. You're like, I'm going to have Gershom on. She doesn't know that yet. And I was like, wait, what?
I've been meaning to.
And then you DM'd me. You're like, oh, do you want to come back on? I'm like, yeah, of course I'm going to come back on. But yeah, that was funny. So thank you so much for having me back. It's always such a pleasure hanging out with you for sure.
Yeah, this is fun. I don't know why. It's been a year. It doesn't feel like it's been a year. And thank you and Wooly for having me on Thrall's Balls. I don't know. Was that 3 months ago? Time is mysterious and silly, so I don't know what to make of that.
I find with age, it really does become a little more relative. Like, I literally don't know when we had you on. I know The War Within wasn't out, so it might have been longer.
Oh,
so it was really? Before August.
Oh, you're right.
We were talking about it. Yeah, so it might be more like 6 months, but yep. I mean, it does fly the time.
Well, I had this idea that we would just sort of pause, and right now is a good time to pause because we're in sort of that 11.5 lull of waiting for, I guess we're now a week and a half away or something like that from 11.1 dropping and the new raid and the new zone and all of that stuff. So it's kind of a nice time to just ponder and see where the game is. Are we happy? What do we like? What do we not like? What are we looking forward to? And I guess let's go through things we like about WoW, things that we're excited about right now. Do you have something you want to start with?
I know. So when we were setting this up, it was kind of like, oh, let's think of like 10 things. So I'm sure we'll spitball because I came up with like 5. I think the very best thing that I'm really liking right now is delves. Those ended up being really delivering on pretty much what they said it was going to be. And no system is perfect, obviously. But this is a good system. And, it turns out that people like it enough and it's worth the work to them that they're going to keep it in the game, which I think that's cool when Blizz does something that's really like a watershed thing, like something like it just becomes so like meshed in with the current culture of the game and what people are doing that they couldn't ever take it away. It's like you would never go back from like flying when they first started flying in TBC, or you would never go back from dragon riding. They went through all the work to make it sky riding, to make all the mounts, like, other systems that I'm sure we'll talk about. But I'm really, really happy that delves seem to stick and to be something that people really enjoy because, as a solo player, I mean, right now, like I'm currently doing like 16 a week just on 2 tunes, just for my vault, and that's another thing that is my other favorite system is I'm still loving the fact that I get to get stuff out of the vault finally. I thought that was so neat.
Yeah, that's very welcoming to players like us, players like me, who I'd never seen a vault until the War Within launched and the Delves launched, and that was literally the first time ever. So opening up access to more people, to more play styles, into kind of as much of the core of the game as possible, I think is great. And I think that's a really hard line to walk when you really think about it, because how much access, should I have? Someone who does not get into dungeons, certainly doesn't get into raids, how much should I get? I want a little bit, not a lot.
I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean, because there are those friends, those other friends who play, who always seem like they want to have something to say. Well, why should it be so easy to get a piece of like 619 gear? Mm-hmm. First of all, doing 8 delves, while it might not be the most challenging activity in the game, unless you've got them cranked way the fuck up. Pardon my French. But unless you've got them cranked like all the way up and you're challenging yourself on purpose, but a lot of times, like, I'll just leave mine a little undertuned. I'm not even worried about the gear that's in it. I'm just getting that vault piece. And 8 delves, I mean, you're probably going to spend about as much time doing that as you would spend in raid in 1 week, 2-3 hours in a raid. That probably, between getting up and not getting it done right away and having to go AFK and kids and dog and work and all this other, real life bosses, I'm probably putting in 2 or 3 hours into those delves. I'm paying the same amount of gold to repair my stuff, and I'm not even getting raid gear. And to me, that seems fine. Like, I'm willing to sit here and be like, well, it's not raid. Raid always is like painted in like shiny bright gold, like, oh, I raid. Okay, cool. I don't enjoy raiding. I think the system, give or take a few tweaks maybe that we could maybe get into later or whatever, but I mean, overall, I think it's a good system. I think it's got good places to go, and I know that it was kind of a response to how much people ended up hating Torghast at the end. So that was like the solo activity in Shadowlands. Did you participate in like any Torghast or?
Yeah, it's probably not as much as I kind of wanted. but I enjoyed it. And I didn't do so much of it that I had time to hate it, and that might be part of the problem. I think the bigger part of it was I didn't do it so much because I didn't need the whatever everyone was farming out of there for their gear upgrades or memories.
The Chorgas concept.
Yeah, I never had that.
I didn't do that either because
right.
So that's what it was I feel like, it was something you could solo, but people still did it in groups or pairs or whatever. And then it was still like the progression you got from it was still pretty much raid progression. Like you had to go get those things. You had to get the relics or the augment rune, whatever the frick they were called back then. But it's like, it still felt like, okay, I did all this Torghast by myself and I was still getting these things that like I wasn't really using, Right. So that is something that they definitely took that page of the Torghast playbook and just threw it in the fire when it came to delves, which is good because it's like, cool, now here's this solo activity where I can make it as hard or as easy as I like. It's up to me. I don't have to progress. I mean, at first you do. You're like, oh, you have to complete a 4 to get to open up like an 8. Okay, whatever. But it's not like Torghast where you had to do every single flipping one all the way up to like, what was it, like 12 or something?
12,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and you can't go until you get and then there's only like 2 open a week. I know at the end of Shadowlands, they trashed all that too. Like, we're not here to talk about Shadowlands, obviously, but just thinking about how that, it was encouraging that Blizzard learned from their mistakes with that system and said, okay, we're going to listen to the players and say like, okay, we like this concept, but how can we make it more friendly for like everybody who does it and just not make it seem like another thing that you're doing to get to like min-max, which we talked about before, but I am not a min-maxer. It's not about BIS for me at all. It's just, oh, is it good? Does it work? Okay, good. Put it on.
Yeah. I think there's probably a point in Blizzard's, timeline where they would take that feedback from Shadowlands and just scrap the whole thing. And I think luckily they didn't do that. They didn't push it for Dragonflight, but they did dive in and really make some good changes to the delves. And I think they're in a really good place. It seems like the things people are arguing are not their existence, but what's the gear reward? What's the difficulty level? How does it kind of fit in with other things? And we can chat about that either now or later, but I think, they did a good job of finding a good system, fine-tuning that system, because it's not, ultimately it feels similar to me to Torghast in that it's a puzzle. It changes a little bit every time. There's a bunch of different puzzles and there's rewards. And to me, I don't do 8 delves a week. I probably haven't done 30 of them total, I'm guessing, but at that low level, it feels very similar to Torghast and with a lot of improvements. So, I don't know. What's your take on people talking about, oh, well, it rewards too much gear or the gear is too high? And because it seems like, on one hand, yes, you want to honor the difficulty level of the activity, and delves are relatively easy compared to the other endgame stuff. But if it pumps out gear at, I don't even know what level, something that gets you into the Mythic Plus system, and it tells people, hey, you're geared up, you should go do Mythic Plus 7s, and they're bad at them, why is that the fault of delves? That's one of the arguments I've heard of, well, the gear is too good, and then people show up and they're not very good at Mythic Plus.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, why would you punish me for that? Why would you punish me for that? Because people can make their own decisions. I know whatever gear I have, I'm not wandering into a Mythic Plus 7, so don't hurt me. Don't nerf my stuff.
I understand. That's a good question, and I guess it feels like a little difficult to answer because as someone who doesn't do much except after I get that gear, I'm like, okay, like I don't have anything to hold it to. I'm not trying to go raid. I'm not trying to do Mythic Plus. Like pretty much since Delves have come out, unless like when I wanted like if I needed the weekly reward from it, which all my tunes have outgrown it, but like I think the only heroics I've done in the War Within even were like the weekly one. Like, go to Cinderbrew Meadery or go to the Rookery or go to this place or go to that place. I'm like, okay, first of all, it has to be one that I don't totally hate, that I know how to do. And then it's like, those are the only ones I did if I needed that like pinnacle cache or whatever it's called that you get. Yep. So I don't know though, like may have to come back to that one because it's like, you don't want to feel bad. I think they're hitting like a right place though, because I know it's lower. It's not the same reward you would get from doing like higher mythics, but I guess I see what you're saying is that some people think that because they're geared up the proper way that they're ready for Mythic Plus. And I personally, like you said, you'd never do that because you're not interested in Mythic. And I just also feel similarly, like I don't really care about Mythics, but I don't know, like there's no way to really force someone to be like, well, you know, you suck at the game, don't go do Mythics. I mean, maybe they want to, maybe in their head or their heart, they're like, I've always wanted to do Mythic and this is a way I can get into it. Right. So like, it's kind of like that bumper sticker. Like, don't be a dick, dude. If someone's in your Mythic and they suck, you know, talk to them. If you have to, kick them. I don't like kicking, but you know, it's like, I don't know. I feel like people are making mountains out of molehills with that one, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think the answer, and this is from someone who doesn't do any of this. I am a absolute observer of this whole thing, but don't pug. Like, get a group that you run with.
That's a good point too. Like, I mean, go. Are you in a guild? Your guild doesn't have a mythic night? Because the only times I ever did mythics were with friends. I have never pugged a mythic, not once in my entire life. I always had at least one friend. It was like Flurpy would come and take me through some low keys, or like I'd go with the DNR guys on some when I was in Uno Mas, like. Or like me and Ventolis would go do one or two, you know, he'd show me some things. So like, I have never pugged a mythic. That just makes me want to like pee myself. Like I would not do that because it does feel like pressure. Like everyone expects you, oh, you're in a mythic. You know exactly what the fuck you're doing all the time. And it's like, no, not really.
One of the things that I think is interesting about Delves that I realized actually while we were kind of planning this episode is, they really confirm what I already know, that I'm really kind of bad at this game because the highest delve I've done is a 6. I haven't gotten to doing a 7 yet. And what's my gear? I think I'm at 610 eye level now. And so, you know, I look at level 8 and I think at level 8 it says, ooh, you should have eye level, whatever it is, maybe 606 or 600. I forget what it even suggests. I'm always way behind whatever their suggestion is. Because, which, when I do that math, I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm really not that good at this game. And I'm okay with that.
So 2 points there. Okay, I'm going to have to pivot from how you feel and say that when I do delves, I feel very accomplished. Yeah, like, I don't know why. I just feel like I'm blowing shit up and and it feels good. But like I said, I also tune mine down a little bit. So like, for instance, Gershom is like 620 right now, and he's doing like 9s. And I think it's recommended he could do like a 10 or 11. But I went in there and I was like, kind of hard. Not what I came here to do. Didn't come here to die, or didn't come here to clear the whole fucking thing and then die on the boss. Or like die on Zekvir, you know, because dude decided to come out of the ground. And all this. So, you know, that is, again, like, it's just player choice, which, again, Liz, good job for giving us options. I think that's amazing. And I would never want to lose sight of that. I'm not much of a complainer. I'm just a general, like, rabble-rouser. But, and then what was I going to say? Oh, like, when it comes to that item level 2, I notice distinct differences for class tuning. Now, I do mainly play hunters. Even my alts are hunters. I like it. I like the repetition. It gives me the serotonin bump I'm looking for. I like it. It's class fantasy for me, and I just really like it. So I'll play, like, all my alts are hunters. I just like it that way. But I do have my warlock, and I did notice that she is much more capable of doing like what's recommended for her armor level, whereas my hunters are a little bit like
under
less. Like I said, like Gershom, you know, his gear's like, oh, it's suggested you could do like a 10 or 11, but I feel comfortable in 9s. But like my warlock, it's recommended she do like a 7 or an 8, and she's doing the 8s. So
yeah.
I don't know what that is. Like just different classes. And I don't know, if you play like lots of different classes, your main's a druid, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do play a lot. I think I play a lot of different classes.
You have like
well,
64 tunes, don't you? Don't you have like a max amount of tunes?
I'm one away from what I'm pretty sure is the maximum.
From them saying, yo, Dave, you cut off, son.
Yeah. No more.
You gotta go home. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, dude.
I really am hoping they'll bump it up, because I'm sure we're gonna have new races soon. I'm hoping so.
It has been a while since we've had like an allied race. That because that was BFA. That was.
Well, we did have
3
Earthen,
expansions
to be
ago.
fair.
What's that?
We do have Earthen. They're new.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
Okay, I did forget about the Earthen. I haven't even leveled my Earthen yet. I rolled him. Dang, I had something I was going to ask you, but it'll come back to me next time.
Let's see. We can wander away from delves.
Just don't wander into those webs. They summon Nerubians. Don't stand in them. Oh god, I literally need a T-shirt with Bran's big ugly face on it that just says like, "Don't stand in them." I love that guy.
Are you sad that he's back for season 2?
So
they originally said.
So we talked about this on the Thrall's Balls podcast a little bit, but yes and no.
Yeah.
I feel like I made this joke where like I felt like when I first started doing delves, I was like, oh, Bran, that's my guy. I love him. I'll follow him anywhere. He's the best. Give me the potions, baby, and all this stuff. And then like as I did more and more and realized how kind of thrashed his whole pathing is still, like they did. Yeah. He needs some work. And I made a joke about like how he's sort of turned into what Wooly, and this is Wooly's term, an AI clown. Mm-hmm. So yes, but also like because I have such a sweet spot for the system and for him, like I don't want to see him go. I think what I'd like to see, and I don't know if they mentioned if this is going to be a thing or not, but that you would be able to choose after some point. So like whoever we get next, which is still a matter of speculation, and it's not going to be till the expansion, so they're keeping him in for all of the War Within. We're not getting a new follower till midnight, I guess.
Correct.
But
yes.
Like I said, like yes and no. You know, I was, and also I was joking around the other day, thinking like I probably tell Bran to shut up more times doing 8 delves than I say to anyone else in like a full calendar year. Like, it's like shut up, like. It's smoked. It's Gouda. We know. It's good. Yeah. Everyone knows. Like, come on, Dev. It's not smoked. It's shut the fuck up is what it is. You finish that joke, I'm going to give you a Colombian necktie, dude. I'm not even kidding. But then no, it's like, oh, Bran. Like, I love you, you know? It's like some kind of weird, like, we've been married for 40 years, like, love-hate relationship. Shut up, old man. Come here and give me some sugar, you know? Do
you think they'll give him some new jokes for season 2?
That's what we were talking about, because he's getting new clothes. Good. You're going to be able to put different clothes on him. I don't know if you heard that.
No,
we were supposed to wander away from Dells. Now we're just wandered right into Bran's bronze beard. I don't know. I think it would be nice if he had new jokes, just because they do. And when you do as many Dells as like me, like I try and do them on all my alts, so you're going to hear those jokes a lot. So I think that'd be nice. His pathing obviously still needs work. I guess you're going to be able to like change his clothes or his hats. Like he's going to have different hats or something like this. So, I mean, I'm always excited to see what Blizzard is bringing to the table, you know, and I like Bran and I like Dells, and we could talk about something else, I guess, besides Dells.
Before we do though, are you going to try him out as a tank? Are you excited to have that option?
I might, but just like, I don't really need... I mean, I'm going to try it because I would like to see if, like, you know where that might come in handy is like I mentioned on that warlock who does better, overall has higher DPS and has ways to heal herself and shield herself. Like Hunter gets exhilaration, you know, so like those potions are really important because exhilaration is like every 2 minutes and it's not much of your health. It's like maybe half of it. So it's not, it's a lifesaver. It's like a game winner, but it's not like something you're not able to heal yourself. So I think it would be fun to see if like a tune that is a little bit better, a little bit more survivability, what it would be like to see if he just goes tearing through it or if it's not worth like the effort, you know? Because I think they did do that with like healers in mind, with squishies. Like if you're a priest or, you know, you're playing something that where you feel squishable, then you would need a tank because you can heal yourself, and his DPS wasn't high enough. So I probably will try it out just at least so I could talk about it. I mean, you understand. At least to say, well, I tried it and here's what I think about it. Speaking of things I never tried, here's the question for you. I remember what it was. Do you want to pivot away from Dells?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Did you ever do story mode?
Yes.
On the raid? You did?
Yes.
I never went. And I probably I'm a little behind on your episodes. I'm sorry. Full disclosure. Okay. I think I'm like 2 out right now, which is really lame because you only put out an episode every couple of weeks. And I'm like, I really should be listening to these before I go talk to him. I'm sorry. But how did it go then?
You haven't missed much. With story mode, not with the podcast. Come on, get
I was
going
to say, missing Dave? He leaves me with a hole in my chest.
No, it's not good enough. Period. End of story.
No? In what respect? Like, how do you...
It was... okay, so if it's called story mode, I sort of thought that you would get a little bit of a recap of the raid or some bit of
Does it just like drop you in the boss room?
It drops you in the boss room with 9 other people with your group. And if your group is alone, it's 9 other AI people. And you pull the boss and you beat the boss and you get the final, whatchamacallit?
The cinematic at the end.
Yeah. Yep. You get the cinematic at the end. No idea why I'm in the boss room, how I got to the boss room. For story mode, it's lacking in story. It gets me the cinematic.
That needs some tuning as well then.
Well, it needs an investment in what it wants to be. I mean, don't call it story mode. Call it go kill the last boss.
Mode.
Yeah. And it was easy, I went in, I remember talking about it on some episode. I don't remember details are fuzzy, but I want to say I was in there for 5 minutes, 4 minutes, something, it was not nothing. I had to dodge a few things and not die, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't look it up. I assumed bad things on the ground. I shouldn't step in, so I'd move. And a few minutes later, the boss was dead, and that's it. And that was it. that was it. And so it really was disappointing. And it really says to me, you really need follower raids. You really need to just take that tech from the follower dungeons and just extend it out. There. I feel like, we've had this conversation so many times. I feel like every time we talk, we're like, come on, they're going to do it. Come on. Yep. Yeah, I think the follower dungeons work great. Yeah. I get to see every step of the process. It's relatively easy, which, as I said, I'm not terribly good at this game, so relatively easy is a good thing. I want to see the 7 bosses that lead up to the 8th boss. I want to see what the battle has been to get there, not just, there's a giant thing standing 40 yards over there. As soon as you've eaten some food, let's go do it.
So the one thing, my note about follower dungeons, so especially when that system first dropped and the expansion was first out, and I was still trying to do some of those heroics, but say I'd never been to it. It was my first time. I would do it on follower mode just to see, so I wasn't just walking in there blindfolded, because I'm not that great at dungeons or the game either. And I just felt more confident saying, okay, at least I can see it. At least I can try it once. But what I found a lot with that is like, it's like Captain Garrick is like your tank, say. And this bitch, if she does not pull the entire room, like, and then she's like, watch out for this patrol. We'll just wait here. And then like, so we all sit down and we wait, and it's a really slow pat, and then it doesn't even get anywhere near us before it pivots 180 degrees and turns around and walks away. And she's like, okay, now it's safe. So like, I feel like the AI is a little too careful and a little too much like of a tryhard, like a bit of a completionist. Like she wants to run around and pull everything, and then she doesn't want to. So like, the next time I did it, I was like, okay, well, I'll go with a group. God, that took forever. I think I did like one of the spider ones, that's city of something. There's like 3 like cities, whatever. Right. And we go in there and we do it on follower mode. And I'm like, I think it took me like 20 minutes to get through this 3-boss dungeon. So I'm well, I've seen it. Let me go, do an LFG. So I jump into LFG and I get in there. I mean, we were done in like 6 minutes flat.
Wow.
So not the biggest deal. And maybe it's better to move slow and see it and understand. But also I think some pathing issues with that. Like the character could just possibly be like the AI could be a little more like efficient or better programmed to be more like straightforward. You know what I mean? Like, does that make any sense what I'm saying?
I wonder if if in programming that they tend to the slower, knowing that if you know what you're doing, you could just take over and lead yourself. You don't have to, you can click the button to not have Captain Garrett take over.
That is true too. You don't have to turn her on.
And if you've never been in there and it's your first time or you want to learn, then slower is probably better. But it's funny. Whenever I do the follower dungeons, I tend to let her take over. And I guess probably because I don't usually know the dungeons well, but I've done a few of them enough times. I could probably not do that. Maybe I'm just lazy, I think. But you're right. I guess 6 minutes or even 10 minutes would definitely be faster. I know. And whenever
that's
I think
the lamest thing to complain about. It really every time I issue a complaint, I also feel like complimenting Blizzard and saying, once again, this is a groundbreaking system. This is a paradigm shift, and a lot of people worked hard on that. And I'm not. You'll never catch me saying I don't enjoy it and that I don't. Understand like, oh, if it's better for you that way, then you do it that way. But that's always the kind of player I've been. I'm like, you play the way you want to play, boo-boo. Like, for real. Like, I don't care what anyone else does in the game as long as they're enjoying themselves and not being a troll, right? Like, so little nitpicky things about systems and stuff. I'm not normally that person, but it was just something that I happened to observe,
Yeah. That makes me think of a question I had for you. And it's kind of related to what you just said. When you play, are you someone who can sort of just drop yourself into the story and not necessarily enjoy, like, I like this story, but can you get in and just enjoy the storytelling and not like question things or say, oh, that's stupid? You know what I mean? Are you someone who can just
playing? Like, am I playing like more objectively or more like disassociatively? I would go
can you
for
suspend
the first
your disbelief?
When I play, I even posted this on my socials one time. I was like, Azeroth is my favorite place to like disassociate. Like, so when I drop into the content, I'm not necessarily thinking about the system or playing it in a way where like, well, what would I change about this? Like, those thoughts do always sort of come retroactively or like after I'm done. I'm like, well, it would have been better if it was this way. But when I jump in, I'm Gershom. Like, my mind is just playing the game and not really thinking about the ins and outs of like whatever particular system I'm engaged with.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I think in some ways in life I'm you could call it gullible. I think it's the nice version of gullible is just sort of accepting things at face value. So in game, it works kind of the same way. Like it could not be the best story, or it could not be super good when I think about it later. But in the moment, I'm happy to just let things go and let the game just be the game. And I'm in that world. Like you said, I am in that story and enjoying it. And it's only later that I can sort of pick things apart. But like, I don't know if everybody does that. I think some people are so annoyed by story they don't give it that chance.
So I think a lot of times for me too is, like I mentioned, like basically all my alts being hunters and all this, to me, like, class fantasy is a big part of it. So even if, like, say the delve or the thing or whatever we're doing is difficult, I still get kind of stuck in this, like, imagination track in my head where it's literally like, I just feel like I'm Gershom, and I know not everyone plays like that. This is weird. Yeah. Like, I don't know what sort of neuro activity is going on in there, but, like, for me, it's just so easy to actually personally feel like I'm Gershom, and so to me, it's like imagination takes over when I'm doing it, and then later I'll think about, like, how did I, and I probably wouldn't even go so far as to overanalyze things afterwards, except being a podcaster too. Like, you want to have something to say as well.
Right.
I can't have Wooly coming at me and be like, well, what'd you think about this new thing that they implemented in the delves? You love delves. You want to speak on that? And I'm like, no. Sorry, Wooly. I'm just kidding. He's so patient with me.
What else do you like about WoW? What's good?
So what do you? So okay, this is for you. I feel like you're going to take the reins with this one, because you have so many alts. What do you think about warbands? That's a big one. Go.
I think it's funny, I haven't really thought about that. I think they are good. I think kind of in the same way, I am happy to praise Blizzard for putting the work in and getting them to where they are now. I'm pretty sure that they'll keep iterating and keep working on it. I hear, why is this currency tradable, but this one isn't? Right. And why is this holiday thing I can do, but on this holiday I have to do it on different alts?
Or like even if you have the map, like, open everything in the War Within all at once thing that they give you, and then you open it and you're like, okay, but I still don't have the flight pass that had to do with story. So like you'll get them, except you won't get the one where you go meet the Orwena lady in that weird like jungle camp, and you won't get the one that's right outside of the Dalaran Crash site, because I didn't go do the Dalaran Crash site story all over again. I just did the skip and started leveling, or whatever. So like, I mean, I think that there's still like some things that need work, but like the more I'm thinking about this things I like, trope that we're on, I'm looking at like my half a page of notes here, and I'm thinking like, talking about at least three. So warbands, delves, and then we can touch on like skywriting becoming a thing, because whatever. But like the War Within introduced us to three really big like systems changes that are gonna be permanent. It's and just to think about how many times Blizz failed with these systems, like the Heart of Azeroth, all that shit that everybody complained about in BFA, like, okay, they never did that again. Like these systems that they're coming up with, it's a lot of work. It's three big ones, and it seems to be things that people overall enjoy that aren't gonna get taken away, right? Like, and I just think that's huge. I think that's a lot, especially the past couple years coming out of things where, not to mention all the harassment stuff and everything. Like, I'm sure we'll talk about the state of that situation too, but just thinking about like really listening to the player, like even just a few years ago, it was like, come on, Blizz, you don't listen to us. They're definitely listening a lot more. But also, sometimes I feel like people are like, oh, Blizz doesn't listen. But also it's like, these are things that take a long time to do. Like, this is a massive amount of work just to uphold this and create these things. So like, I think I posted about that one time online, but it was like, you know, ever since Wrath of the Lich King, ever since As Joel Narud, people were like, oh yeah, they scrapped this raid, they just made it 2 dungeons and this and that, and wouldn't it be cool if it was a raid, or how neat would it be that we went underground? Okay, well dude, yeah, you had to wait like 15 fucking years, but you got a zone and a raid and a culture and a story, you know what I mean? You got a lot of lore, you got a lot of stuff. So it's like, sometimes I feel like WoW players aren't the most patient people. It's like, you don't want to sit around and wait forever and hope that something that you want to see comes out. But then things like the whole Azkahet concept is just like, okay, they might have been listening to us for longer than we realized.
Right.
And then a lot of people are out there just hollering like, come on, please, we want it now. We want it now. Like, we want it right this second. So
I mean, you're not returning a steak to a restaurant that was overcooked and 15 minutes later you get another steak. Like, these systems have been in process for years and years and years. So yeah, it's going to take some time. It's, you know, I don't think people complain that their DPS is like 0.5% off and that's an easy fix. They're complaining about a whole system. So of course it's not going to be fast. Like,
right. Yeah. Exactly.
You get it. You're right. Patience is not high for, I think, a lot of people, or at least the loud people. I mean, that's the thing, right? There's a lot of people not making a big fuss and that we don't necessarily hear from. So yeah,
that's true too.
Yeah, Warbands, I think part of it for me is it's clunky because as you said, I have 64 characters. So I hop on a new character and how do I get gear to them? How do I move things around? It's nice that a lot of things are swappable pretty easy even across servers now, but my stupid war bank is full of garbage already.
So not to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but one time on Thrall's Balls right on air, I had complained that I thought it sucked that my Alliance tunes had a bunch of money that I couldn't have because I didn't really play my Alliance tunes anymore. And Wooly was like, you can put that in your Warband bank and do the thing. And I was like, oh my God. I felt like the dumbest person ever. So I guess that's proof that like I don't necessarily engage with that system a lot, but sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, and I think stuff like that is fine tuning, like moving currency around. I had the hardest time doing that when it first came out. What were we moving? Like memories from the pre-expansion thing. And I don't know. Maybe I was doing it wrong, but it was not intuitive which things to click, which button to, how to move the money around. Or whatever the currency was, and then
or like making a little mistake, like realizing you need to have at least one of the currency on every character, otherwise it won't be open. Like they won't be considered someone you could transfer to and from.
Right, that could have been maybe that was part of it too.
Yeah, it's like I can't transfer this to my Blood Elf Hunter because I've never played her. Like she literally had to have one memory of Kalendor so I could like send all the Gershoms to her, but like if she had none I couldn't send them, so it was like it was stuff like that. I can see what you're saying.
I think they've been working on that stuff and I think that's gonna keep going. I think it's gonna be an ongoing thing, and ultimately I mean I think it's good. I think it's good for the game that you are the player, not your character is the player, and therefore when you switch characters that character starts from scratch. Yeah, that's just not the way people want to play games anymore. I understand that mentality, and I think some of the things that Warbands enable make it a little too easy and a little too fluid, I guess, to have multiple characters, but that's the way I think the game should go, like the direction it should go, so yeah.
Well, like, I can't remember who the interview was with, but Ian Hazacostas was talking about this sort of thing specifically, like the whole not to like trample the whole paradigm shift expression into the ground, but like for someone who's been on the team, since birth, Ian knows what he's talking about when he says this game was not created for alts. And I played vanilla. I know. It took me I was in the crossroads for 3 weeks. I don't remember how long it took me to get to 60 anymore. But we were in the crossroads for 3 weeks, and there wasn't anything like that. Like, you didn't have an alt because the game was a very immersive experience. It was a full-blown, I didn't play anybody except that rogue from Classic until Wrath of the Lich King, and then I rolled Gershom, and he's been around ever since, and things have gotten better, better and better for alts and stuff. But when this game first came out, it wasn't alts. People just didn't do that. It took a long time to play, and it took a long time to go get all your fire resistance gear for Molten Core, to go get all your poison nature resistance for Zul'Gurub. Those were total other things that you had to do a bunch of dungeons that you had to do with your friends, and LFG wasn't a thing. If you weren't in a guild, you were fucked. And it's coming a long way. So, I think there's some stuff that needs to be ironed out, and some, to bring myself to my point, I guess, is what Ian said was that, a lot of that stuff is that coding is still in the game. So when they're going in, they're making these new systems, they're not just dumping in a bunch of new code, they're breaking old things. They're making hard forks left and right. So
that's a lot of work.
Just to say. So, overall, I think is probably most of the things, once again, I would say about Warbands is okay, it's something that is not the biggest deal. It's not destroying the game for me. I think if I can't send everything to everyone all the time. I kind of wish they hadn't said that at BlizzCon though, because that was Ian's exact words. He's well, what is Warbands? Basically, it's everyone can have everything all the time or something like that.
Yeah.
Or account transferable everything all the time. And it's no, you're probably sitting at a hot 50-60% right now, but I do think it'll get better. So
yeah. Yep. One thing I think is really good in the game is, and people will maybe argue with this, but I think the story is good, but that's actually not my point. I like the way that they are starting to roll out story in optional bits. And the fact that there are so many stay a while and listens in this expansion, more, I think, than ever before. I like the way that they're rolling out the Titan artifact bits, where you go and you get 100 of the things, and then you take them down.
And then you go down, and Arcadis comes up and talks to you and stuff. Oh, 100%.
And all of that is, if you want story, it's right there for you. You click stay a while and listen. You do the Titan artifact thing. You whatever, you can choose that. And if you don't care, or if you've heard it 12 times or whatever,
just click accept and go play the game.
You don't have to do it. Yeah, you can skip it.
You don't have to. That's great.
And so, I think it's good. I think instead of dragging everybody through, 60 to 90 seconds of whatever and people get annoyed, you can give them the bare minimum and then send them on their way, but leaving these options for, I do want to sit here and listen to them talk for 5 minutes. I think that's great.
See, I personally think the stay a whiles and listens are the real MVP. I love them. Yep. But, one of my sometimes co-hosts and, friend of the show, Craig, he literally said on air, he's like, stop with all these fucking cinematics. I hate it. I hate that I have to watch a 2 minute. Yeah, you can hit escape and leave though, like you said. Right. So it's if it doesn't fit to everyone, I think that was a good thing. What I have written in my notes when you said story, I was is he gonna say? I was gonna say I enjoy the slower pace of it, the fact that they're laying this out over 3 expansions, and we should probably jump into what are we have questions about, or what are we looking forward to, because there's so much I want to talk about there as well.
Sure.
But overall, this slower pace, to me, having an entire story pushed into a year and a half, maybe 2 years if you're lucky, just felt a little frenetic. And I felt like I was missing things. And then it's okay, well, we're done. We killed the Lich King, we killed Anubarak or whatever, he ran away or whatever happens. And then it's like, well, let's go to Pandaland now. And it's like, what? Like, huh? Like, yes. Yeah. Okay, there is the lore, and it ties in. And if you do it and you study and you listen to podcasts and you play the game, it'll make sense. But also, it's like the thought of not knowing every single thing and maybe not knowing what Beledar is for several years, as much as I want to know, is kind of cool to me. Like, what do you think about that? What do you think about that slower kind of unrolling of the story?
I think it's good, and I think that the idea of Beledar is a really good example of that, in that we may not know for a while, but we know, in theory, we have faith that we are going to know in a number of years, where before, you're right, everything was crammed into a year and a half, 2 years, and then the shifting of the gears was complete. You're right. You're going
but
from
sometimes
this.
It was just a little jarring. I always felt like a new expansion would always just be a little jarring. Sorry to interrupt you, but
we'll go do a completely different thing. Where here, you're right. We can wait because it's not just going to all come in a flurry at the end. Knowing that, I remember thinking when they first announced this, oh, wow, are they going to do this in like 3 years? Is it going to be shorter expansions? And I think even, I don't think we knew it was going to be a full 2 years. It kind of feels like a full 2 years.
I remember like people mentioning that because it was Chris Metzen at BlizzCon, and he was like, we're talking about Warcraft for the next like 20 years or something.
Right. And
it's like, yeah, like a lot of people were like, are these expansions going to be a little shorter? I mean, probably, but War Within released in what, like August? August?
Yep.
Was it?
Yep.
And it's almost February, March. Okay, so we're sitting right at like 6 months, and we're getting 0.1. So really, if we're going to do 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 on that sort of schedule, that's 18 months. It might not be 2 years. And it might, give or take, maybe a couple months here, a couple months there. But I don't think these are going to be drastically shorter expansions. And I appreciate that because there's a lot going on. And this is like a huge story. So we're not really losing much time. As long as you play with the game and you engage with it and you log on when you can, you're probably going to get most of it done. But I do just sort of appreciate the less like frenetic pace, to get the whole story done in like 2 years. Like that's hard.
Yeah,
there's still things in other expansions that I'm like, wait, what? When did this happen? Like, I can't think of a specific example, but I'm sure everyone has one where they'll go into like the throne room and see something, and it's like, oh, I didn't play that quest line, and now the expansion's over. So like, what's happening?
Yeah, so this is nice because the horizon is just pushed out, probably another 4 years minimum to get to the end of this trilogy, and that is nice. That is nice to just know what's coming without knowing what's coming. I mean, they haven't spoiled anything, but knowing that there's a path and knowing there's, I think, intention. It's not even just that I know there's more story coming. I know. I don't know. It's like they've led us into their future, where before they wouldn't tell you what the next expansion is, and now they've said, we've got these 2 more coming, and then with, like you said, Metzen hinting that they know all the way out to, at least sketched out to like 17 expansion, 17.x. That's forever from now. So that sounds like a cohesive story. It sounds like they're taking good steps. Yeah.
Right. And I think too that there's enough, like they also did a really good job of balancing out like, things to chew on. Like, okay, I could talk about the Arathi forever, but it's like, okay, they have elf ears. Neat. The original people from Arathi were just humans. Some of them were not elven looking. It's like, they're not elves. But then it's like, okay, you look at Midnight. So we're going to Quel'Thalas most likely, which is like what I mean. Like, they're doing pretty good at like rolling out the stories. Like, okay, Quel'Thalas was like pretty close to the Arathi Highlands. Like, it's just a skip and a jump up north, you know, like there was definitely maybe some politics going on, maybe some things, you know. And I mean, I remember there was a scene in the Shadows Rising book. It's in Arathi where like Alaria and Thrall are like torturing that orc. I don't know if you've read the book, but like that orc was captured in the Arathi Highlands. So it's like, okay. I mean, there's enough to chew on, I think. And I think that's nice.
Yeah. What else? Do you want to look forward? You want to do that?
Yeah, let's look forward. Let's do that.
Yeah. What are you excited about? What's what's
good? I mentioned Beledar already. I think that's an interesting thing. So Hallowfall is probably my favorite zone. And I just really want to know more of that story. I feel like if we're going back to that part of the world to like Quel'Thalas, are we going to touch on the Arathi Highlands? You know, and just thinking about, so something that blows my mind about Arathi is like, or about Hallowfall, sorry, is that like how well developed it is, right? It's this entire culture, or Beledar is like this pretty big town, and they definitely have like their religion and their military and these things. They haven't been there that long.
Yeah, 15 years.
Maybe like
according to the story.
You're wondering because it's, but you know, I mean, that most obvious thing that would set anyone straight about how long they've been there is the fact that Farron says, she's like, oh, I was the first child here. I came here as like a stowaway. And I don't know how old anyone has imagined Farron being, but I don't put her over 25, 26 years old. She's definitely not 30. So it's maybe been like 20 years they've been there. So they definitely brought something with them. But if they're going and looking for this Renalash thing, and that's all they want to do is go fight in this end battle, this big religious war, and they didn't expect to have to settle, like they weren't going to go make another city somewhere. They got caught in a storm. Right. And it was a horrible problem. So in 20 years, like, y'all had all this shit with you. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? It's like you crash land and then you like build like an entire city, which is a lot of work. But obviously like this culture and this like religious ferocity that they have and stuff is obviously something very ingrained in their cultures. So that when they were up shit creek, they're like, okay, well, the light is with us. Let's go kick some ass now and fight these spider people. So like, I definitely want to see what's up with Hallowfall, with the Arathi, you know, tying Beledar into that. Have you heard the theory that that's the tip of Sargeras' sword?
You know, I wondered that, and I think I've heard things.
It kind of lines up because that was at the end of Legion, which is like in our times, like 15 years ago, but everyone knows their skips and things are longer. Like supposedly, it's been like 8 years since Shadowlands. It hasn't been like 4 years. You know what I mean?
Right,
so like, has it been 20 years since Sargeras tried to stab Silithus? And
I think we're pretty close. I think you're not far off with the timing. You know, in my head,
I didn't come up with this. I'm recycling something I heard. But the time thing was something I was thinking about myself. I didn't hear anyone else say that. But when I heard the theory about the sword, I was like, oh, that's weird because look at the math.
I know.
The math is mathing for once.
I've always wondered that. And I thought at some point I had heard some fairly believable evidence that it couldn't be that. But for the life of me, I can't remember what that was now. And I guess I thought the time frame didn't work out, but it might. Thinking back, you know, it has been 5 years. It was a 5-year period after Shadowlands, before Dragonflight, and whatever. That math might get us back to the right area. I've wondered. I don't know. But why does it turn funny? And yeah, it's like with the Arathi, we want to see both what's coming, what's ahead, but also what's behind. We want more backstory, I guess. I mean, maybe it's there in the game and I haven't found it, but I feel like, I want to know more about their journey from wherever to wherever.
I just feel like that one is a matter of time, which is why I put it in my like things I'm looking forward to area, because I mean they're not gonna they can't just throw that. It almost seems like the faith, like my faith in Blizzard's like storytelling capability has gotten a lot better If not
Why?
through Dragonflight, then definitely just in the War Within. And I know we're just getting started, but this is really story heavy, you know, and I just think like, I don't get the impression anymore that like, oh, we're going to wrap, like I said, we're going to wrap up this story in like 18 months, 2 years, and then it's on to some other fucking planet or something, right? It's like, no, they're gonna do this. People are already making theories about what it is and how they're gonna do it, and it's very exciting. I must be honest, it's very exciting.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's always through lines, but usually they're so convoluted and off in the distance. They're not front and center. And so you're right. This time, the through lines from expansion to expansion really are baked right in, and that really is exciting. I think we're right to have a lot of hope for getting stories explained and not just being left like, oh yeah, we didn't feel like explaining that. On to the next thing, where I think that's happened in the past. I do have faith that that's not going to happen this time. Here's hoping.
Also, not to like put us back in the weeds with the things we like, but one thing just real quick that I think I like about, and the War Within is not the first. So I feel like Shadowlands did this, and then Dragonflight didn't, and then War Within is back to doing it. And what I'm talking about is the fact that like these zones, as intertied as they are, and like to use your word, like the through lines and stuff, they're all tied together, but they all feel so distinct that it almost feels like if there's one place where you want to spend all your time, especially like after you're done leveling, no, it's not the best way to like get gear. Maybe not everyone's going to play that way, but if you really want to, it feels like while all the cultures are together and they're all on Khazalgar, it's also like, if you like the earthen, you can do all of that. Or if you like the spiders better, you can do a lot. You can do a lot of content over there and just totally rip that story to shreds. I mean, there's like 3 different followers you can level up for. So like, I know Shadowlands did this with the Covenants a little bit, and I'm kind of glad they moved away from the Covenant system, because I think what I would have cherry picked out of the Covenant system is finding a place that feels like home to you, and you know, playing that part of the story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, where the Covenant system, it felt like, yeah, you had a reputation thing that went up and you got rewards from it appropriate to your Covenant. You also got story, and you're right, you kind of had to run 4 characters through there to get 4 different stories. I mean, it's one thing to not necessarily need all the gear, but if I wanted to know everything about those Covenants, I had to do it over and over and over again.
Or pay the price and switch, and it got increasingly expensive. It was like on a sliding scale. Your rep would go down, and it cost like some amount of money or currency, whatever the currency was. So it was like, it came at a cost, or the cost of leveling another character or using a token and going and leveling up enough to pick a new Covenant, and then you still had to play so much of the expansion. So really, like, in order to get all 4 stories, you did have to play a lot. I feel like this is, as much as we were talking about it being alt friendly, it's also very solo player friendly, because like Gershom can do all those stories for as long as he wants, you know?
And like solo character friendly, if you're someone who just wants to play that one character. So sure, with multiple, you know, renowned tracks, whatever we're calling them now, you do level those up, you do get gear and benefits and things. But I think it's not tied to story necessarily. Like, you can get, I think, I may be talking out my butt here, but I think you can get through and get the story of these things without necessarily having to progress all the Ajkahet, you know, renowned tracks, for instance. I'm so far behind on those. I think I have one of them, I don't know, somewhere, and the other 2 are just nowhere. But I don't feel driven to have to do all that. I think I can get to all the story just going and doing activities and all the side quests and everything. So that's a gating that isn't there, that is nice, and that is, I think it's just friendly to everybody. Solo players, solo characters. I think that's a good thing. I like that.
I do think overall, and I should probably just save this for the end, but really it's like, do overall find the game to be much more playable and like having like an association with it, like a deep, and it didn't take some radical crazy you got to have 4 characters covenant system and you got to do the raid, you got to do that. So like a lot of the changes are like really, I think the game is much more accessible to lots of different players now. But do you have anything, like, what are you looking forward to seeing? Because I have like one more. I know we've been on the line for a while, so I don't know how long. Although I know some of your episodes go like 2 hours. So if people don't want to listen to us talk, they can turn it off.
They can, yeah.
They can. They might. That's okay.
What else am I looking forward to? One thing I'm looking forward to, but not looking forward to, but just looking forward to this part of the story. Remember they had said, I think Metzen said this, we're gonna see some very big characters not make it out of presumably the trilogy.
Yeah.
And we haven't really lost anybody yet.
I didn't like all that Khadgar shit though. I was crying,
touch and
bro.
go,
I was like crying
it?
at my desk.
Yeah.
I was like, please don't take Khadgar from me, please.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I felt like I remember thinking, I don't know. I don't think they're going to do it. Even knowing that they had said, yep, so some big characters aren't going to make it. I had a funny feeling, even in that moment the first time, like, I don't know.
What if what they were talking about? What if what they were? Sorry to interrupt you. What if what they were talking about, characters not making it, was that fucking Archmage Dresden dude? Like, he didn't make it. He got taken over by Zalatath and burned down Dalaran, and he did not make it. That guy was. He was on the Council of Six. He's a pretty big character, right? Everyone's like, oh no, Thrall. Oh no, Khadgar. Oh no, Illyria, Tyrellian. Like, okay, it was Dresden.
So who do you think? Who do you think's not going to make it? Any ideas? Do you have anybody you're worried about? You're trying to get protection for so they don't get in danger?
Since you dropped it in my lap, I don't.
know, right?
So this is funny because several months ago, before The War Within released, I was asked a similar question by somebody, and I don't remember who. I feel so bad, but I remember that the topic of conversation was Illyria. And I was like, well, don't make another Windrunner sister the bad guy, because we've done that, and that's not fair. Yeah. It's just a lot of like Windrunner. It's like, okay, we just battled one, all of Shadowlands and all this, and Legion. She was, Sylvanas was like one of the pillar characters in Legion, obviously, and stuff. So it's like, but also like Illyria is gonna go through something, I think, more than anyone else, because this is like void themed and stuff. So it's like, I don't know how they would do it, but just feeling like they're going to, like, we're going to Quel'Thalas, we're gonna, that's where the Sunwell is, that's where Kel'Thuzad shit in the pool and all this stuff, and that's where Arthas went and destroyed the entire area, and what made Sylvanas so mad to begin with, and all this stuff. But it's like, I feel like they are, I don't know if we're gonna lose Illyria in a death sense, but I feel like she's going to go through something so shattering, but I couldn't even begin to imagine what it is, other than having to do, obviously, with Zalatath and the Void and the Sunwell and this, Dementious creature, these Void Lords that run around and destroy things. Like, she's obviously gonna be into that. And I mean, maybe like the worst that's going to happen from that is like, it's always been a question how her and Tyrellian like hang on to each other when their powers are essentially like polar opposites of each other. But then when they use it to their advantage, like I said, like in the Shadows Rising, they were very much united on killing that orc. Like, it didn't matter whether they were using the shadow or the void or the light. They were going to fuck up that orc. So I don't know. I think something's going to happen to Illyria. I don't think she's going to die, but I think it's going to be critical for sure. Like, what do you think?
So it's
Is there
funny.
someone you had in mind?
No, because as I asked this question, I was thinking, that's really not fair of me, because I'm not someone who actually tries to predict and like, oh, I wonder if it's going to be this person or that person. So I'm usually content
I'm not much
to
of
just,
a theory crafter either. I know, I'm not.
I kind of just let it happen. But as you were talking, I'm thinking, oh, what if it's their son? Is it Erator?
I just gasped. Oh my God. That is okay. What are you thinking? That's interesting. What are you thinking?
I mean, it feels like Tyrallion and Illyria are just pillar characters who have this really hard relationship given the two directions that they're going in. And it's almost, I don't know, from a writing standpoint, it's almost a cop-out to pick one and kind of send them. What if the big horrible thing that happens is they both survive, but they lose their son in some of this battle? I wonder, I don't know. That I guess it depends on how dark and hard they want to make this. We haven't
seen him yet in the War Within, too. That's another character where it's like, okay, like...
Yeah, I don't remember the last time we saw... I know not that long ago, we caught a glimpse of him somewhere. I don't remember where, but... Yeah, he hasn't been front and center. But he's...
I keep interrupting you. I'm the worst.
No, you're good.
She does in several points in the game, in cinematics, in her flavor text, when she in her speech, when she talks. If you watch a cinematic, when she talks to certain people. And then don't forget they came out with that kind of anime looking short about her. Remember before the expansion came out? Erathor figures pretty prominently in her speech. She's like, oh, when I think about what I want to do, whether it's right or wrong, I think about my son. And then in the short, in the animation, it was like, oh, and then we were 3, and she just looked so goddamn happy, which I'm a mother of 2 people. I get it. You're holding your baby and you glow, you know, it's true. Sure. It's a baby. It's a thing that you did. But he does figure pretty prominently in her speech, but in her, obviously, the way she moves, the way she talks to people, the way she thinks about what she's going to do, she thinks about her kid, which, like, once again, I'm a mother. I get it. I go through life every single day. Everything I think about is like, oh, is this good for my kids? But that is interesting that he's nowhere to be seen right now.
Yeah.
But definitely on her mind all the time, which, you know, is natural as a mother, one might assume, but I don't know. Yeah, that would be heavy. Oh my gosh. That's a good point.
One thing I am looking forward to, because I think it's going to happen, I'm not sure, but the idea of kind of backing away from Exile's Reach as the starting zone for everybody, that little training camp.
Right.
And I
like
have
the
a
1 to 10, you get your little set, you get your little first little tier set. Yeah, my daughter loves to do that. It's just right for her. It takes her like an hour, and she's like, oh, that's fun.
Yep. It is kind of fun. I've done it probably many times. Probably more than 20.
I don't think I don't think this is written in stone anywhere, and I don't remember if it was just postulated by someone I know or if I read it on a forum somewhere or something, but I had this impression that there's going to be like a couple different ones. So like just instead of Exile's Reach, like, because Exile's Reach doesn't exist. Like once you leave. It's not on the map.
Right.
No one knows where Exile's Reach is.
Right. Exactly.
In fact, I had this really weird theory. I was like, was the Siren Isle where we were? Oh. It wasn't. It looked similar. It clearly wasn't. But it's like, okay, you leave Exile's Reach, and it literally tells you you're leaving. You're going to Stormwind. You're going to Orgrimmar, whichever way, you know, Horde or Alliance, whatever. But like you leave. You don't go back there. There's no way to go back there. You don't get a Hearthstone. You don't fly there. It's just some weird place that you ended up on. So that's kind of like a weird like blank spot too. Yeah. Right.
I think it was a good change when they did it. I think it is simple and easy. I think it does for all the crap people seem to want to give it. Oh, it's fantastic.
And also, if you're just fucking tired of killing going in that stupid cave, like if you like to roll trolls and orcs like me, and every goddamn time you got to go do those burning guys in the cave, and there's like 5 quests you got to do, and then it's like, oh, go back and kill the boss, and you just went in there, and now you got to go back. Bro, like things like Expedition or what was it called? Expedition Isle or whatever. was very welcome because I was like, I'm gonna roll an orc and I don't have to kill a big scorpion anymore. Like,
I think they're gonna go back towards racial starting zones. I have a hunch, and I other people have had hunches. They were talking about it on Unshackled Fury the other day, where Jez kind of put out the idea that the Belemeth zone, the new Night Elf zone, which, you know, is obviously...
that was kind of a blowout. Like, you did the thing, for example, and you say, and then Malfurion comes back, and then him and Tyrande go fuck, and then it's like, okay, like, what was this place? It's huge.
Yeah, that's not there for nothing. Like, that definitely
like
is...
a placeholder zone, almost, it feels like. And they have done that. I mean, I remember hearing theories back in, like, Wrath of the Lich King about what is this weird island nation way up in the corner off the north side of the Eastern Kingdoms. Well, now we know it was the Dragon Isles. They're there. And they've been there. That has been on the map, unlabeled, as a place you couldn't even go to for 10, 12 years before Dragonflight came out. So,
so I think with that for Night Elves, and then we've got, you know, Silver Moon and all of that getting, you know, worked up in the next expansion, that might be a new racial starting zone. I think they're going to start to go back in that direction.
We got the Worgans got Gilneas back. I don't know why I said we. I do have a Worgan, but I'm not like super dedicated to her the way I am to the Horde. But we got Gilneas back, so that got revamped.
I think one thing that got lost in Exile's Reach is that idea of race and what it means to be whatever race that is. And, you know, if you all go through the same, you know, funny thing and you learn a few things about your class and then you're level 10, I think it's good. It's a good onboarding for people to get into the game, but you're missing some of that. And I wonder, you know, goblins are going to have Undermine once this patch is out. And I think once we kind of get past 11.1 and that gets into the rearview mirror, that's going to be a great place to go and start goblins now that their current starting zone is kind of too far back in time to exist. So it feels like this might be the start of making those changes. I think that would be a good thing. I'm looking forward to maybe that.
So like Novel was postulating on social media the other day about, I think it was Novel, I hope I'm not misquoting, but basically posted like a huge picture of like the gun, an Ishara, like the goblin gun.
Yep.
And like, please say we're gonna fire it. Please say we're gonna fire it. Like, okay, is that how we get to Undermine? We're just all gonna go on a big rocket and just like get shot into space or wherever we're going. But like, yeah, I mean,
we could use that for something, right?
I'm thinking too. Oh, when you mentioned that though, like I know we talk a lot, or like I talk a lot about class fantasy, and like for lack of a better word, I think that like racial fantasy is really fun a lot in the game too. I mean, we identify with Horde and Alliance. I love trolls. Sure. I love them. I like Zandalari trolls. I like Darkspear trolls. All the trolls. So like doing something like Exile's Reach, I call it like Expedition Isle or something. Exile's Reach though does take away like that fantasy of the race that you're playing.
Yep.
It is just more of like an introduction. Here's your spells, here's how to play the game, and then you go out and do the thing. So yeah, like no, that could definitely use like a revisit, like a revamp. And I think that's a good point. I never even thought about the Belemeth thing. I remember going there and I'm like, well, I'm done. Stay a while and listen. And like Jaina and Caligos are flirting, and then and then Malfurion and Tyrande are reunited, and what's her fate? Chandris is like, oh, she's the new leader of the Night Elves, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, it was like, but it was over in like an hour, and I'm like, this is huge. This is a big place with like nothing to do. So, and that doesn't seem very efficient of a thing to do. Like you wouldn't write that game, you wouldn't put that in there just to sit there and be like neat. Right. And
there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of places you can explore.
There's a lot of trees and stuff in there where it's just like, cool, we're done. 1 hour later, leave. Like, hopefully Malfurion didn't say that. Oh, ouch. That would suck for him.
Are we looking forward to the big news, of course, this last week or so?
Housing.
About Housing, yeah.
Talk about
what do you
housing?
think?
Yeah, we can
Have
talk
you thought
about housing.
it? What do you think?
I have mixed thoughts. I don't think so. It's not something that I necessarily was always dying to have.
Sure,
so like
yeah.
just seeing people extrapolate on it and talk about it and theory craft about it has been fun. You know, it's like when something's huge on the internet around our community, like of course I'm going to pay a bit more attention. I think I'm going to take it slow and see and make sure that it's not too much of a time sink / gold sink, because I remember, because both of those things I don't have a lot of, by the way. Like I don't play a lot of alts. I'm sitting at like a cool $500,000. Like I remember the first time I saw some sort of data mining about a house, and it was like a Stormwind-esque, like a human looking house, and it was like $1 million gold. So I'm like, wow, is that even something I can buy? And they've already suggested that they're not going to engage in the lottery system that like Final Fantasy 14 engages with. So like, how are they going to do this? But no one said the house is going to be $1 million gold either. Like that could all be different. But like, I think in general, I'm just approaching with a little caution, just because I don't feel like it's something I ever needed or wanted. But now that people are excited about it, if it's going to be in the game, of course I'm going to explore it. Like once again, also like I'm going to try it just so I could talk about it on, you know, podcasts and stuff. But I mean, like, how do you feel? Are you like jumping out of your chair for it? Or like, how do you feel about that? Like,
yeah, I think I'm a very similar mind, actually, in that I want to wait and see. I don't want to get excited for, I mean, this could be anything. And, you know, I think they gave some really good, I wouldn't call them details. I guess they didn't call them details.
There's definitely a skeleton out there of what we might be able to expect.
Yeah, it's not going to cost you money. It's not going to cost you lottery. It's going to be accessible to everybody. It sounds like if you want to invest in this system, they're going to make, you know, they're going to offer you things where you could spend a pile of gold and even spend some real money. It sounds like there will be stuff in the shop, but they don't want it to be real money focused, and they want you to be able to participate. You know, even if you don't have millions of dollars or millions of gold, you can participate. You may not be able to get everything you want, but that's not the same, you know, as the other systems that just make it super expensive or make you win the lottery or charge you the taxes every,
or even like it sounds like, you know, and I think Holly Longdale mentioned this in her blue post about it, but it was like I didn't get everything maxed out in my garrison because it just got hard, and I think it was even gated that's behind like dungeons and raids and things. Like so I think they're moving away from that. Like this is definitely not garrisons, obviously, because people hated that. Like I remember people just saying like, oh, it's a giant Facebook game, like or something to this effect. But yeah, I mean, I have like a modicum of excitement for it. I'm not like, that's lame, but it's definitely like a wait and see, especially like, you know, no harm, no foul, because we've been praising Blizzard a lot too, but some of these systems, as groundbreaking as they are and as approved of, you know, by popular vote in the player base as they are, they still need a lot of work. Yeah. And kind of going into another brand new system at the beginning of an expansion with a bit more of an open mind and saying, okay, this is something that Blizz does sometimes. Like they'll release a product that's not fully developed. So I think, you know, because people are excited for it and they want to meet their deadlines. And then they're like, well, we'll work out the kinks later, which they do. And it's fine and it's great. And that just seems to be like kind of the Warcraft way of life sometimes. But I think that's a good idea. Like the wait and see approach. I'm excited. I'm definitely gonna try it out, but I'm not like, oh my fucking god, I get a house now, need to burn. You know, like some of these people are just really like the most on social media and stuff. And I'm like, okay, I don't know, guys. But if that's your bag, then it's your bag. And like I said, no harm, no foul. I think it's great. The more there is to do, the more players that are happy, come on, let's play WoW, right? I mean,
Right. I agree. I think the more people you can get into this game and you can properly serve them, I think that's great. Like solo players, the fact that solo players are getting parts of the game aimed at them.
Huge.
Yeah.
And that's only been in the past couple years. So yeah.
And so if you want to play the housing game and there's enough there for you to meaningfully do whatever that is, then that's great. I think it's important that the way games are made and the reasons that people play games and the amount of time that they have to play games, just a straight up MMO RPG is not going to do it anymore. Like, this is a 20-year-old game for a reason. And the reason it's still here is I think they do keep trying to innovate and trying to find ways to get people in. I think Plunderstorm is a great example of that, people play games like that now? Okay.
Like the whole Fortnite vibe of it.
Yeah.
Do you play Plunderstorm? Do you like it?
I really do kind of like it.
Do you? Oh, I do remember you talking about it now that I think about it. I just never got into it. I don't even know why. I do know why. I like the challenge of running around and trying to not get killed. I don't fight anybody. When I do, if I have to, and I push buttons like a angry chimpanzee in a space capsule, and then I usually die. Twice I didn't. Twice somebody else died. I was very proud of myself. There you go. See, you're having fun.
Yeah. And so, it's more ways to pull people in and get them, into the game itself. I mean, ultimately, if you're paying your sub and you're enjoying it, then that's a good thing.
It's been a motto of mine from the very beginning. You pay your money, you do you. It's your money, it's your game. Right. Nobody from Blizz or any other player or any online trolls are going to come into your fucking house and tell you, oh, you're not playing the game right.
Right.
It's here and it is what it is. So
and now that there's more than just, I raid, and that's really the only way to play the game. Now there's, a lot of ways to play the game, and they're all getting value. They're all getting attention, which I think is good. So I'm looking forward to it in that way. As they give more details, not everyone, obviously, but everyone's going to have the opportunity to be disappointed, right? I'm already slightly disappointed that what I kind of hoped for isn't going to happen, which, not that I thought it would, but, I was kind of hoping that there would just be random buildings everywhere, that a bunch of them are already in the game, and now you could go live there. There's a bunch of them in game that I already think about, like, oh yeah, this character just kind of lives here in Thunder Bluff or in this building and whatever. And that's, clearly not the direction they're going to go, and that's fine, but that's already a point of like, oh, that's a bummer.
Do you think that the communities that they're talking about that you go to are going to be like a what I'm wondering is if they're going to make it like a experience where, like, say you go there and it's in some sort of through a portal, or like how Delves, how you walk into the zone and there's no loading screen or anything, but then you're just in the delve. It's like, I'm wondering if the housing experience is going to be something like, can you walk out of your house on the street and just go start playing the game? Or is it like this kind of sharded experience where you just go in and just do that? You know what I mean? And I'm probably not reading all the articles because, I'm not sure.
No, I know. I'm curious. It sounds almost as if they're going to carve a magical little area out of nothing in both near Orgrimmar and near Stormwind, and that's going to be a place all of a sudden that was like a new suburb almost. And it does sound like it'll be like kind of like that delve idea of, I'm walking in, but I'm walking into mine, and mine has 49 other houses because all the communities will have 50 houses or whatever. And I don't know.
And there's also this I appreciate that they're leaving things, like, it almost reminds me like, hey, we're going to have the bestest, biggest Thanksgiving meal of all time, but I'm not telling you what I'm cooking. It's like, they'll tell you something like, oh, your Horde and Alliance characters can go visit, but they can't play, but they can't do things in each other's houses. So it's like, well, are we having turkey or ham or both? Or so,
that
was a lame analogy, but you get it.
No, that's actually not bad, because if you go to that Thanksgiving, you're like, what do you mean we're not having turkey? Like, what do you mean? It could be.
Then you get there and it's lasagna, and you're like, oh, I mean, that's cool. I like lasagna.
Sure. Yeah.
I will engage with the lasagna a little bit.
So, I don't know. Can I have more than one house? Can I have that? Doesn't seem like I can, but that seems weird.
Yeah. Like lots of questions.
Not that I want 64 houses for each of my characters, but I at least want one on the Horde side, one on the Alliance side. Can I do that?
I think that's going to be something that you can do. I mean, I assume. But
and then they're also talking about
go visit. Yeah, so.
Well, this is the first wave, and it's kind of, they said it's kind of orc themed or it's kind of human themed. Well, that suggests that there might be more waves and more, this is the next one in Belemeth for night elves and somewhere for blood elves. And if that's the case, I got to think we can have multiple houses, because I'm not going to sell my house in Stormwind to go live in Belemeth. Or am I? Like, there's too many questions. Yeah, or am I? I don't know. So too many questions means I have nothing to get excited for or angry about. So I really am, kind of like you said, I'm just kind of waiting to see what it is before I invest too much emotion into anything. I think that's where I am right now.
I think I agree with you 100%. I think the one thing that I thought was funny, and this is one of those things where I'm like, oh, I don't have gripes, but I just talk a little bit of shit, And I think, like, I had heard this thing about, oh, the Alliance houses are going to draw from, like, Stormwind and Lakeshire and Duskwood, which is kind of cool. 3 pretty distinct zones, and I know you main Alliance more than I do. And then you go over to the Horde, and it's like, oh, it's Duratar and Orgrimmar. It's like, that's the same shit. It's like a big fucking desert and everything's wood and metal. Thanks, Gershom. Yeah. But it's like, I don't know. Like, I felt like, why did they phone in the Horde houses? And like, because I would feel like Westfall, Stormwind, and Duskwood are like very distinct places.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Like with more accessories, like.
Yep.
I don't know. It's just another one of those weird things.
Again,
and I know we're just spitballing, but
yeah. So I'm curious. Yeah. Again, I'm just gonna hold everything until I can see. They had 2 little drawings, artist concept things of 2 different house styles, which that combined with the idea that this is supposed to be very much customizable in the way you want to do it. It sounds like there's going to be a ton of options, customizations. I don't know, not the norm. Like, for instance,
I think they said like hundreds. I think it was in the hundreds. There are like hundreds of things to do to your house, and I'm like, and what's funny is, like, I had mentioned on Thrall's Balls that I was like, oh, The Sims is like 25 years old this year or whatever, but like. Right. Sometimes when I'm relaxing or trolling my phone or taking the train or whatever, I don't mind myself, a little town building game or like a little township or like a little something like that. So I could see where that still appeals to folks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think they have to have it more customizable than like our customizable mounts. The drive system, the thing I saw, there was like 20, maybe, if that. That's neat. It's just not going to be enough if that's the house thing. I think the house thing has to be a lot closer to, I don't know, did you ever make a whatchamacallit, the Drakthir? Did you ever make a Drakthir character?
I made a Drakthir, but I didn't really level him. He's like. Do
you remember customizing it though? Do you remember first?
Yeah. There was a lot. There was a lot. God. It was too much.
It was too much. And
I remember.
It has to be like that.
You just mentioned the Unshackled Fury podcast. I remember before Dragonflight came out, we had Berserker on the program, and
Nice.
we were talking about like, are you a face scales guy? Like, do you want scales on your face or not on your face, or maybe on your back? Like, so yeah, so like it was a lot. I mean, I felt it was like edging into overwhelming.
Yes, I
Just
agree.
for a character, but then it's like you get to the rostrum and they dialed it back so completely that it's like, well, this isn't even fun. It's like, cool. And then some of the stuff was so hard to get. It's like, why you gotta do, to go like, oh, this pattern for your dragon only drops in like Mythic Raid. I guess it's just one of those ways, like you can walk around with this mount that you got a skin from with like Mythic Farok or whatever, but it's like, also like there's definitely a balance to be struck there, but it is an interesting point because I had never thought of it that way until you said it. But it sounds like they've been experimenting with this customization for different things for a long time, and that could just be coding. That could just be a coding experiment. Like, how do we do this? How do we do that? How much do people like? How much do they not like? So it's so open-ended at this point.
Yeah. Yep.
Now the more we talk about it, now I'm kind of excited to see it.
Well, that's good. Right? That's good. I mean, I think it's good to spitball and generate some interest at least. Again, I'm trying not to. I don't want to build myself up to then be disappointed. So I'm looking forward to it. I guess that's the thing I can say. I really can't wait for that next round of detail, which I assume won't come until maybe summer. Because I think, aren't we talking about launching this in winter of this coming year?
The housing?
The housing? Or am I
thought
crazy?
It was coming in midnight. I could be wrong.
Right. No. Oh, okay. So I think coming before, like just before midnight is the thing I think I've heard. Kind of like a pre-expansion thing that it's up and running, kind of like the Warbands, where Warbands came out and then we had a little bit of pre-expansion time, fix all the things that broke, and then the expansion launches. I guess somebody proposed the idea that maybe the way this goes out is it'll come out before the expansion, but close. So
I'm literally trying to look this up, and for some reason my internet is being a real shitter. It's just like spiraling out. I'm like, when is WoW housing coming? And it's like, okay, it's just a bunch of YouTube videos. There's not anything that's going to be something I could find right away. Because I thought it was midnight, but that also, like what you just said, was kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So
like,
I think
here's your taste of it, and then you'll do the whole expansion, like doing that thing. Yep. So
it'll be interesting. Yeah. I don't know. Well, I don't know. Last thoughts? Things you're excited? Things you want to sort of...
I have one more for you.
Oh, that's right.
And I know we've been going, but I have one more for you. Yep. I want to see what's going on with Dalaran. Officially. Yeah. Like, we know it crashed, and we know there's this spot, and there's all these mages paying attention. And by the way, my boy Calicos is there. He's like, hey. And then him and Jaina were flirting in Belemeth. Hey. So, like, no, I'm not really worried about... I'm not trying to ship Calicos and Jaina, although we did have an episode over on Thrall's Balls called We Ship Jaina Ghosts.
That's right.
Like, we're all about it. Funny. But
did you enjoy that quest line? The
what was
Dalaran quest. Did you enjoy that Dalaran quest line?
I liked it. I liked it. Yeah, I liked it. I like going in and finding, like, Baelgrim shows up and all this stuff. But, like, I think what I really want to see is, like, what the hell? Like, I don't know. I just feel like, well, obviously so many people died because it exploded. But, like, can they throw us a bone and show us a few more folks who survived, who are doing something in the current game that is not like Jaina, that is not like Aethys Sun Reaver? You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, yeah, you have your pillar characters, obviously, but, like, what's up with, like, Kindy Sparkshine's parents? They were still there. And, like, what about, the Mad Merchant? Like, is he gonna maybe make a show where he runs around the whole zone for, like, once a year, and you could maybe find him? You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like that is, like, kind of an open source of, like, things that could be done too. And then they're already talking about, and I mean Jaina and Khadgar, like, oh no more floating cities, no more big buildings. And Jaina's like, yeah, we just need to focus on the work. And she's being Jaina. And I know, and then Khadgar's like, I'm too old for this shit. You go do that. So like, it's okay. There's definitely something. Like again, something's gonna happen. But I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. No, I think that you're right. As much as they kind of tied up a couple loose ends, there was a whole lot more. You're right. Like there were some survivors. I remember there was a hatful that we were introduced to, I think, at the start of the expansion. And where did they get off to? Are they in that city in Dornegal, that little town nearby in Dornegal? Or are they in, I guess some of them are in the city of whatchamacallit.
So I think you're talking about like that little outpost that the Unbound have. The earthen that rejected their edicts or whatever, and they have that little town, and there's like the bearded lady, her name's like Adelgon or whatever. I think there's like a few survivors there too. Like people are wandering around, and it just feels like
Feywald Spring.
There you go.
That's
Freywald Village or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. There are. Yeah, I wonder about the people. Somebody mentioned, hey, there were a lot of bad guys in the Violet Hold.
That was me. I said that.
Oh, it was you. That's right.
No, well, I mean, I'm not the only person who said it, but thank you for reminding me, because I said that too.
Yeah,
I was literally like, there's like a whole bunch of serious fucking demons just chilling in this jail.
And they probably didn't just die.
And we're talking about the void, so it's like, what? Like, you guys, the city exploded, and demon, we know for a fact that denizens of like the Legion, and that they don't die. They just go back to what's it called? Like I can't think of it right now, but like they go back to their demon place and they get reborn where the void, where the dreadlords go and stuff. So it's like, okay, they didn't die. Are they coming back and better than ever because now they're not in jail? Like this is gonna be like Breaking Bad, but with demons. Like I don't understand. Yeah, that's a very good point.
I wonder what's going to happen with that. If any of them come back to bite us, or where they went, or I want the government investigation that would happen in the real world to find out what happened, and I want to know what happened, all the stories and all the stuff.
You want like a 474-page Senate report about what happened?
Yes. Yes, I want the 9/11 Commission.
In the Violet Hole, like they just got out of jail.
Well, is the game in a good place? What do you think?
Yes, 100%. Yep, I have
20 more years.
Wow, that'd be weird. I'll be a WoW grandma, God willing. I don't know, 20 years. I mean, I never thought I'd be playing it for 20 years, and here I am. So. Yeah. And I mean, all the stuff about like systems and Blizz aside, I do think that one of the greatest things that I've gotten from this game is the community. And I know a lot of people will say that, and really like just sitting here today and talking to you has been such a privilege. It feels really great. And I really appreciate like the online friendship that we've forged and stuff. And I think it's great what you do. I feel like you try and really pump up like the community aspect of things. And as solo players, I think that's cool, because a lot of times we're not always interacting with like guilds or, even LFG people. Like our circle can be a little smaller. So I think what you do with this podcast and with the way you reach out on social media and stuff is just, it's chef's kiss. I think,
Thank you.
That's
super sweet. Well, you've been fantastic in supporting me, both like out in the social medias and stuff and on your podcast, and just, back and forth. You and I, it's been really nice, and it's kept me going forward and thinking I could do this. So I really appreciate all of your support. Totally.
That's very sweet. Love it.
Yay. Well, it looks like our time in the queue is up for this month. Yay, this was fantastic. I need to get back into Azeroth and see who I want to pump through Love is in the Air a couple more times before it runs out.
I have not even been doing it as much as I should. Sorry. Sorry to interrupt you.
I'm half-hearting it. It's, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
hard.
All the music you hear is the work of the amazing people at Blizzard. So, don't play muted. And the music taking us out is the song Ogre by my friends in the real doom metal band Ogre. I want to thank everyone who made this episode possible, my lovely and supportive wife, the good folks over at Podbean, and definitely Gershom. Thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure. I always love hanging out with you, Dr. Gagne. That's what I'm going to call you from now on.
There we go.
It's an inside joke.
Neither confirm nor deny my doctorship, my doctorhood.
You are the doctor of the podcasting. Had so much fun today. Thank you, Dave. You're so cool.
Where can people find you if they want to check you out?
So I'm still hanging out on the Twitter or X or whatever you call it at Hunter Gershom, all one word, the word Hunter, Gershom. I'm also hanging out a bit on Blue Sky with that same handle, and then I'm on Instagram. There's 2 R's in Hunter, so it's Hunter. Gershom. Or it might be 2 R's in Gershom. Damn it, now I think it's Gershom. Yeah, I think it's the word Hunter Gershom. So 2 R's, because that's the one I could grab. So, yep, I'm there sometimes. And then also I'm over on the Thrall's Balls podcast. I'm in that Discord, thrallsballs.com. You can join the Discord that way. Appreciate if you give us a listen, maybe leave a review or hang out in the Discord. And that's pretty much it.
Excellent. You can find me at SoloQWow in many, many places. Gmail, Blue Sky, Twitter, a little bit on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. You can also check us out on the old Patreon, patreon.com/SoloQWow if you want to be a free member or, my goodness, be a paid member. That'd be fantastic. Kind of like Andrew and Righteous Bandy and that Sky Guy, Sin, and the Snake of Voldoon. So, you'll be in good company with them. Well, good luck with whatever next episode you guys are getting up to. You're like over 150 now, right? 160, something like that?
We're recording 173 here in about 45 minutes. So
well, there we go.
I'm podcasting like a mofo today. How this worked out this way, but I'm glad that I said let's join at 1 o'clock my time and not 2 o'clock, because I knew we were going to talk. I'm like, we're going to hit 2 hours. Me and Dave are going to hit 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, I loved every minute of it. Thanks, Gershom. And we'll see you sometime out there, right?
Yeah, see you in Azeroth. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, listeners. Solo Q crew, let's go!
Woohoo! We'll see you out there.
I'll always be your first, though. I'm just kidding.